The next principle that I want to share with you, and this is really powerful. I'm sure you guys remember this scene. For those of you that remember, a couple years back, we went to go as a team. We went to what was it called? It was War Room. And so this next one, I want to challenge you because I was convinced that I've done this, and so this is something that's been changing in me. But I love this picture of this scene, and I'm going to depict it for you. But I want to begin by saying, give all or nothing at all. You can't give less than 100% and expect 100% in return. I will tell you that right now. Give all or nothing at all. You're better doing one or the other. And there's a scripture here that I'll talk about in Revelation 3 that says, because you're lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I'm about to spit you out of your mouth, out of my mouth. So think about how straightforward that statement is. And so what I want to share with you is this is a really powerful scene that really depicts something really amazing. And so if you remember, if you haven't seen it, go watch this great movie. But in this scene, this lady is literally about to go list this old lady's house to sell it. And as she's sitting down for coffee with her to talk about, if you guys remember the scene, they sit down to talk business. And so the older lady, who's obviously a prayer warrior, she's learned how to walk with God. She discerns that this lady is a believer in words, not deed. And as she's talking to the lady, she's trying to basically qualify her. Is this somebody that I want to hire to sell my house? And so the lady's sitting there, she goes, hey, would you like some coffee? And as she's preparing the coffee, she realizes that this lady is extremely superficial. And she does the coolest thing that I've ever seen. She literally comes back and hands a cup of coffee to her, steps back and grabs hers. And as she's coming in, there's her face as she takes a sip of this coffee, and it's lukewarm. And she's like, almost spits it back out. And she puts it down on the table. She's like, ma'am, but this is lukewarm. And she's like, yep, just like your relationship with God is. And so what a moment, right, to get challenged and to say, wow, well, hey, how does that taste, right? And so think about it from this perspective. Don't be lukewarm because it tastes bad for everyone involved. A lot of times we can say, a lot of us can say, yeah, I'm in, yeah, let's go. But the reality is, are you really 100% in? Because if you're 100% in, you can feel and see the difference. And if you're not, then why be in it at all? If you think about it, don't you have better things to do with your time than to be lukewarm somewhere, right? And so it's a challenge to you not only here at the office, but in your personal walk with God and in your own personal lives. You know, don't put yourself out there and just be lukewarm because it tastes horrible, and that's the face you're going to have. All right. And so it was such a great example. I wish I could do that with some people, but the reality is it's true, right? If you were to look at it from retrospect, what a beautiful picture of somebody who called out somebody's relationship and said, you say you have a relationship, but this is what it tastes like based on what you tell me you have, right? It should be a warm cup of coffee, or at least put some ice on it and put some, anyway, make a frappuccino out of it. It's either make a frappuccino or make it a hot coffee, but do not give me lukewarm. Does that make sense? The other thing I want to say is you can't have your hand in 10 things and expect 100% from all. Now, understand that as an investor, your objective over time is to be able to allow your money to do the work for you so that you can ultimately multiply yourself and multiply your time by employing your money to do that. But the reality is, if those 10 things represent or require your effort, would you agree that as an individual who has limited time, that you cannot be 100% somewhere? Does that make sense? And so if you're focused on 10 other things that you say you're committed to, the reality is you're never going to be 100% in those opportunities. So limit yourself. Sometimes less is more, and you get more out of it. And you're able to truly give it 100%, and therefore you can expect 100% of return. Does that make sense? And I almost feel like that's what God wants us to do. He's like, what are you doing all these crazy things? I never called you to all this stuff. I just wanted you to walk with me. And out of the walk that we have is where all these things will happen. Does that make sense? Simple sometimes is deeper and more stronger and more fulfilling than being able to say, well, I went to 18 different Bible study groups. I went to different mission trips. I did all this for what? Like, it's worthless. You didn't even give 100% of yourself while you were there because you were busy answering the other emails for the next trip you're going to go on. Does that make sense? And the same with business. Here you are like, yeah, I'm a businessman. I'm going to do all these things. But you're spending 10% of your time on something. And if you expect 100% of return of it, I'm sorry to tell you, but it ain't going to happen. So you're better off pulling back, pruning, and taking the good away so that you can focus on the great. Does that make sense? And so that's what I want to challenge you with. The next one is this, and this might, I got to give props to my mother-in-law. She taught me this once. Somebody once said, hey, the grass seems greener on the other side. And so here it is. If the grass is greener on the other side, it's because they watered it consistently, right? And so remember that. And so a lot of times we might look at other opportunities and other people that are being very successful, and all we want to do is hop into their camp. But what you didn't realize is what did it take for that person to get there in the first place? So just because his grass is greener doesn't mean that yours will be too when you jump on his side. Does that make sense? So make sure that you're watering your grass, take care of your garden, and stop worrying about somebody else's. Because the moment you worry about somebody else, you stop focusing on yours, and guess what? Then yours gets dry, it kills your grass, and you don't have any productivity. So trust me when I say God made you who you are with a purpose. Don't live somebody else's. Be you. Be the person God called you to be, but water your grass. If you don't see the results, it's because you're too busy looking at somebody else who's watering their own. Does that make sense? So grow by watering your own grass. Trust me when I say that you can't, nobody can be you. So why try to be somebody else? Does that make sense? The last part I want to say about this specifically is command the commitment that you want by living out yours before everyone else. I'll say it again. Command commitment from others, in another way, by living out yours before everyone else. When you are a person that lives out your commitments, you do what you say you're going to do. You're consistent. You're fruitful on a consistent basis. People want to commit to you. Does that make sense? But if you're unfruitful and you're somebody who's inconsistent, why would anybody want to help you? And in fact, what ends up happening is I almost wish I could put a pyramid to show you the levels in which people are. So usually you give somebody the benefit of the doubt. So when they show, hey, I'm committed, great, and they're at this level of trust. And then they say they're going to do 4 or 5 things and they don't do any of them, or they come in late, really late, right? And so then it's like, okay, you went from this meter here. And before you know it, you get to this lower level where if I got to put up with you because we work together, that's great. But it doesn't matter what you say to me because I don't believe anything you're going to say. Why? Because I've already seen the proof is the undoing of your commitments instead of committing to something and being consistent. So don't fall down that ladder. Be somebody that you change other people with your commitments. And so I'm going to share with you something that I'm going to be vulnerable with you guys on that really has been really powerful, and God has really ministered to me through it. So about 4 years ago is really when I started digging in, trying to get closer to God officially. Like, okay, Lord, I'm going to remove the wall. And Sam has been there. He's seen my struggles over the years on getting close to God and then not going any further. All right, this is as far as you're going to go. But over time, I felt like God really drew me in and said, I called you and I want to teach you some things and I want to unleash you, but you're the one that keeps blocking it. I'm not the one that stopped. You're the one that stopped pressing in. And so I started pressing in more and more and more. And now it's become a very consistent thing. And it's incredible, the fruit of it. In fact, I share with my family and my kids. I journal, especially when I feel God spoke something to me, and I write it down. And sometimes if it's a hard time, I share it with my family. And I literally have my kids be a part of the experience, if that makes any sense. And I'm like, do you remember 3 months ago when we were praying for this and I told you this is what happened? Look at what God did. And I'm able to share with them that. So over the last few weeks, so this is now, we're talking now a couple of years, right? My daughter has seen 4 years of inconsistent man of God, and then 4 years now of consistent man of God that is struggling forward. Doesn't mean I'm like perfect and walking on water. Trust me. I tried that one day. Fell in the pool. I literally tried it. No joke. I'm like, if I have faith, I believe. I guess it works better when the two of us are doing it. But anyway, so the point I'm trying to make is, so here's 4 years of inconsistency as my daughter's growing up, and 4 years of her seeing every year daddy's trying to pursue better, get closer, spend time with, to the point now that she knows every morning where daddy's going to be in the mornings. So she'll come up sometimes, she'll sit with me, and we'll have a little bit of a Bible study. Not much because I'm finishing mine. She literally started coming up to me, and I'll tell you the story that caused this. And she says, Daddy, I have a question. I'm like, yeah, baby, what is it? She goes, I want to hear from God the way you hear from God. What an amazing testimony. That's the best thing my daughter could have said to me is, Daddy, I want to hear from God the way you hear from God. Could you show me? And so tonight we have a meeting to talk about a plan so that during summer, she and I are going to do a couple Bible studies throughout the week so that I could teach my daughter how to hear from God. Think about how powerful that is. Now, that I could have already scheduled that and just put that on my to-do list, right? And say, oh, I'm a good father. Let me mark that off the list. But when it comes from your kid, why? Because they watch you be consistent. They see your commitment to God, and they want it in return. No. That's what changes the lives of other people. So think about it from your perspective. If you're not seeing change in somebody, ask yourself, am I living it? Because if I'm living that commitment, I'm going to touch other people. And so now to wrap up why my daughter decided she wants to hear from daddy and hear from God and wants daddy to teach her, here's what happened. If you guys remember, in the month of September, we were getting ready to go to Uganda for the mission project. And I had a meeting with Dave Green and Alberto. You were in that meeting, so you absolutely can testify to this, right? And so we met and we talked about the game plan for October. And Dave Green literally said, hey guys, I know that we're doing some good things and we're always busy, but I want to pause for just a minute. And I want to warn you guys, we're doing something of purpose, something big that's going to shake up the heavenly places. And I don't want to scare anybody and act like there's a devil under every bush, but there's probably going to be some spiritual opposition. So be ready for it. Pray about it so that you're strong. Sure enough, by the time I drive home, the devil didn't even wait till like a week where I forgot the whole statement. By that day, I got an email from the contractor's attorney in California threatening me, literally threatening me that they're going to sue me for $550,000. You've got no case. This is ridiculous. And I CC'd my attorney. Long story short, we kind of disconnected. I went to the mission trip. It was great. But I'm not going to lie. When you have to hire an attorney and cough up money, it doesn't feel like very exciting, right? And so during this time, I started praying. I'm like, God, I mean, I didn't do anything wrong. Like, here I am now, have to pay an attorney thousands of dollars to retain him just so that he can protect my name. And I'll never forget it. As I was praying, I just wrote a question and I closed my eyes. And the moment thoughts came in, I just started writing down. And it literally, I felt like it was like God speaking to me saying that I will confuse your enemies. You will not have to fight this battle. I will fight the battle for you. And I'm like, oh, hey, I was all pumped up, right? And then like 2 weeks later, I get the bill. And I'm like, I don't see how you're fighting for me, God. It sounds like my attorney's fighting for me right now. So I'm not going to lie. I wavered in my faith. I was struggling. But I did it anyway. I'm like, all right, Lord, I'm believing you. I'm praying for this. So every day I prayed about it. Long story short, coming to January, all of a sudden, I get an email while I'm with the kids in Canada. And it's the attorney of our borrower sending a message to us. So now they're threatening me that they're going to sue me because it was a contractor we brought in. And so I'm like, whoa. So I called the guy while I was in Canada and I said, listen, man, the reality is we never authorized it. Here's the way it is. I gave him all the evidence. And he said, well, these guys just put a lien on my property that we're supposed to be partners of. And now they're putting a lien of $500,000. I can't even move this property now because of this. And so I gave him all the ammunition he needed to fight the battle. So then we fast forward. I come back from Canada. I'm getting a little frustrated. I'm getting upset. And then my attorney calls me and says, Rick, I'm going to share with you a story. And you're going to be pretty frustrated, but at the end, you'll be happy. So I'm like, what could you possibly tell me now? And he says, well, the good news is what you gave that attorney has been the ammunition for him to battle his battle. Most likely, they're not going to sue you because without you, they wouldn't even be able to win this argument. He's like, the bad news, though, is these people are so aggressive that not only did they put a lien illegally on the property, but they're suing you individually and on your company separately. So no matter what, you're going to have to defend. And so what I suspect is that if they keep fighting this, it's going to cost $75,000 just for me to prepare for trial to get this ready, even though we have all the ammunition in the world. He's like, so you might be better off writing this company $25,000. How many guys will be excited to write that check? Not even close, right? And so I'm sitting here going, oh, man, I mean, I thought God said that he was going to fight for me. And I'm really frustrated, right? I'm like, okay, well, obviously that was Rick's words to encourage Rick. And the good news is I shared this with my kids and my wife. And my wife's like, no, God is faithful. He's faithful. Keep believing. And I'm like, and so my daughter got to see some of this, right? She got to hear it. So finally, I'm like, whatever. So I'm like, just do whatever you can, push it forward, and then call me when it's time to negotiate. So a few weeks back, he called me and he said, hey, look, things are coming together. That lawsuit is winding down. And I'm going to find out who our new judge is in this lawsuit. I'm like, all right. So then he calls me. And he's like, Rick, I want to share something with you. I think this is really good news. And I'm like, yeah, what is it? And he goes, first of all, your borrower won the case on that illegal lien on the property. And they've been awarded over $16,000 from the contractor for basically providing a frivolous lawsuit. He goes, the great news is this, that the same judge that ruled is our judge that had been randomly appointed in this lawsuit. So I'm like, are you kidding me? This is great. This is awesome. So I'm guessing that probably $5,000 or $3,000 will do because then, it's a prep either way is going to cost a lot of money. So, but at least now it went from 25 Rick to $5,000. You should be happy. So I'm like, man, I still feel wrong. So anyway, he tells me this, and then I go to the men's Bible study group. And we met on a Tuesday night, the first one, and the first prayer that we had was God cleanse us. And it was, remember that, right? So as we're praying, I really felt like God convinced me instead of convict me that I needed to not only forgive this man and his company, but I needed to pray blessings over them. And so I'm like, are you freaking kidding? So here I'm in a circle of guys.
He was like,
I was squirming. And you were there.
No,
I was squirming. So I tell these guys, here's what happened. Here's the whole story. I'm telling you right now, Like, I have to forgive them, but now I have to bless them. Thank you. So I'm like praying. I'm like, okay, Lord, so in a group, we got our warm up. Then the next morning I wake up and I put them on my prayer list. And I'm like, Lord, I pray for this integrity builders, which has no integrity. Like the first prayer was really like, almost sacrilegious. But so afterwards, every day, I just kept praying for them. Lord, bless them. Let them save them. Let them learn what integrity is about. Show them so they can run a fruitful business. Lord, I pray that you bring people to them that will help them. And all of a sudden I started turning it, like I got freed. And so I'm like praying, like, bless them, Lord. And now I'm getting serious about it, right? And so I'm telling my wife and my kids, look, I'm praying blessings over them. So then a week later, this was last week, I get a call from the attorney. And he goes, Rick, check your inbox. And I'm like, okay. So I'm going to read to you what I got from my attorney in the inbox. And this is crazy. So for those that don't believe in God, like, yeah. So here is the message. So this happened April 16th. So this is very relevant at 2:30 p.m. And the subject line says integrity builders versus his capital. Like literally that's the message line. Then the attorney for the actual integrity builder says, for settlement purposes only, my client offers a walkaway. Each side bears its own fees and costs. Done. And I'm sitting here like, are you kidding me? What happened? And he says, not only this, Rick, this is crazy. He's like, but I owe you money. He's like, because I've only had to work 5 hours for this thing, so I'm going to be sending you a check for more money. And I'm sitting here like, are you freaking kidding me? So I'm like, what changed this person's mind that they would possibly just walk away? And he says, well, what happened was when they lost that lawsuit, and the judge really specifically told them how preposterous this lawsuit was and fined them $16,000. And then randomly, somehow, we got the same judge. And like, the guy realized he's got no case. He's probably going to end up owing Rick money. And so he backed away. And so now let's go back to the first word that I got. I will confuse your enemy and they will fight each other and I will fight for you. And sure enough, guys, God answered my prayer and he actually defeated the enemy. And I didn't even have to swing one time. So it took time, and that's because God was showing me. But that's why I say you're all in or nothing at all, guys. Honestly, get in it and be a part of it and experience it. But don't go in lukewarm because it doesn't help anyone. And so it was because of that experience that my daughter saw the ups and downs from me journaling it, from me being frustrated about it, and then from God answering that Kaylee said, Daddy, teach me how to hear the voice of God. And so with that said, I'm going to end it today, guys. So be thinking about where you are. Give it all or nothing at all. Thank you, guys.